Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Check out my comics at KINGCOMICS.CA. Check out my YouTube channel, King Comics 2021. Check out my Instagram, Maximus Rex 13, and check out my Facebook, Max Rex or Big Baby. Today's Wildcard Sunday, guys, where we look at stuff a little bit different from our regular scheduled videos during the week. So we are looking at Batman Black and White, the trade. I know what you're saying. We saw some Batman last Sunday. You often say you're kind of past Batman and you're kind of tired of the Batman tropes, and I am. But I will reiterate, I think what I said last review, or maybe a few Batman reviews before, there's going to be a lot of Batman in this week here. I've got Batman Lobo Tuesday with Sam Keith, so, what are you going to do? The reason, of course, being is that Batman, no matter what I think of the story and the tropes and stuff and, the repetition of those things, there's just a visual aspect to Batman that's undeniable, that's fun to draw, right? I admit I still love drawing Batman. And of course, a lot of artists agree with that. And then what's great with something like Batman Black and White was one of those first times, other than maybe like, Legends of the Dark Knight, which gave us actual cool stories by different creative teams and varying roster of artists, right? So it was nice to see different versions of Batman. But this one kind of did it to where Legends of the Dark Knight was focused a lot of still on American artists, maybe a few European artists here and there, at least early on in those first kind of 50, 60 issues. But then something like this went and tried to get artists really, was the first thing to get artists from Japan and Europe, and specifically outside of the regular kind of pantheon of American, mainstream comic book artists, and even more kind of, I wouldn't say underground, but at least not so well-known American artists to contribute to this book. So this was kind of one of those first anthologies to do that. The idea that it's black and white is pretty cool too, just kind of stripped down to its bare minimum as a comic strip, basically, I guess, and just short stories, and to allow a lot of different artists to be able to contribute who maybe wouldn't have contributed or had the time to contribute in any other kind of function. So really, this is just as an artistic function that we're going to look at this book. Like I said, the stories are kind of interesting, some of them here and there. Some people throw in new things that in this that I think are valuable and fun to look at for sure. New kind of twists to Batman. And that's about all I have to say about it, really. And then we should open it up and have a look, right? Alex Toth, this is actually a close-up of his pinup that became the cover, or I'm not sure how that worked. Maybe the cover to the first issue of the miniseries. So originally, this trade came out in 1998, but the miniseries itself, Batman Black and White 1-4, published in 1996, right? So I think we can probably tell. Do they reintroduce the artists? I'm not going to go through the introductions, right? But okay, so we've got a Lee and Williams cover here, so very mainstream looking no matter what. Here's a good look at some Jim Lee Williams inked art without any color. So first we got, so they have the introductions. That's great. So we've got Ted McKeever here. Right? So again, the interest in a book like this is just the various interpretations of Batman, right? Ted McKeever's is obviously very kind of dark and moody and textural, somewhat abstract in his aesthetic. So back in the day, this was pretty rare. I don't think anything, maybe one or two things that already come out. But anyways, Bruce Timm doing some Batman. Getting pretty racy there, Bruce. Get us in trouble on YouTube? No actual boobies. Very high contrast, obviously, because, again, knowing that the assignment is black and white. But this we've seen before. So here's something we don't see a lot of. I think there's a few Batman stories drawn by Joe Kubert, but very, very few. So this one's pretty rare. And, of course, you recognize Joe Kubert right away with those thick brush strokes and, like, bold textures, I guess is how I describe his art, right? He's got kind of a weird take on Batman here, where he's actually a bat and actually flying amongst the bats. It's kind of like a metaphor aspect to some of the visuals here. It's not literal, right? Here we're kind of back to reality. There's no pack of bats around him. And I mean, Joe Kubert, right? What is there to say? He's one of those classic artists. You know, he's got that kind of maybe more old school looking line, but you know, his art is solid. His composition is solid. He can draw characters from all different angles, and you know, you can see his son Andy and Adam Kubert. His sons Adam and Andy Kubert became artists as well, and I could see some of like the basic compositional tricks that Joe Kubert uses here in their work, and the angles and stuff that they choose. Yeah, quite a different look overall for Batman, I think. And, you know, not quite as, really does look like a man in a costume, I guess is how I describe his version of it. You know, this here, if it had, you know, shorter ears, this would almost be the Robert Pattinson version. And you can see that, like, whatever's wrapped around his neck there in the cowl is, like, pretty thick kind of collar, almost like a jacket collar to a certain extent. Yeah. There's an odd little story where he takes off with them. The framing on this, I always thought was a little weird. The fact that they get cut off a little bit at the bottom here by the panel, but I mean, it doesn't bother the storytelling. I just always thought it was a little odd. Howard Chaykin, always awesome, always very graphic. Typical example of his stuff here overall, the design sense, you know, the different textures he's using. He's always kind of been a fan in his work of like the 1930s, you know, the art deco is, I think is what it's called, and like the architecture and stuff. So definitely using that here, even though, you know, these are statted buildings, right, where you trace on top. I don't know if is it done digitally? I feel like it's done by hand. Same thing here, right? That was done from a picture, photo, maybe some add-ons and stuff, but the basic thing was from a picture. This is as well, right? Nothing wrong with that though. So, it almost feels like this story should be taking place in the 1930s, but the modern cars kind of go against that idea, so I'm not quite sure what he's going for here. Not that it matters. And yeah, I mean, another artist who clearly understood the black and white assignment, so I think he definitely conceived of the art in that sense. Jose Munoz, who a lot of people say Frank Miller ripped off, European artist. What is he? Alex Sinner is his series. So it's a pretty interesting story. It's almost like he took the story of the Crossroads, the guitar. I forget who had the guitar. It's not Lead Belly. Someone else, some blues player. The name Johnson. Anyway, the name escapes me, but I feel like he took that legend of the Crossroads and learning to play guitar from the devil and moved it over to the trumpet, you know, just kind of interpolated it, I think is the word. It's an interpolation. And yeah, the demon turns out to be Batman. What was great about this too is you get to see some background art on that first issue, and we're going to get it for issue 2, 3, and 4, but we're going to save that for later. Jim Lee cover sketch, the most influential comic artist of the 90s. I probably agree. Jim Lee agreed to try his hand at the cover of a first issue. His original sketch fully captures the character's dark, brooding nature. That's the editor saying, man, come on, man, that's a much cooler version. And it definitely is compared to inked by Scott Williams. Like, the mood of this is so much better. That's why, like most artists, I prefer when they ink themselves. I wish Jim Lee had inked himself. And he does do a story with Warren Ellis and Batman Black and White 2, not issue 2, but like the second go around of this miniseries with kind of diminishing returns. But I do like the art in that story a lot as well, because it is a kind of a toned down Jim Lee inking himself, and I think it really works well. Ted McKeever, as he mentions, is kind of, you know, pretty controlled, and then everything kind of gets a little crazy in the inking stage, is what he says. Right, I'll read it. For someone who's known for his obsessively frenetic artwork, Ted McKeever's pencils give the appearance of a well-thought-out roadmap. It's in the inking stage that Ted transforms his calm and orderly pencils into the high-contrast world of nightmare and noir. Noir. And it always helps the first issue to get some, especially something called Batman Black and White, so they got good old Frank Miller to do a pinup here. And I believe Legend kind of kicks off issue 2, so that's where I'm going to leave you off. And we're going to look at issue 2 of Batman Black and White next week on Wildcard Sunday. If you are subscribed, you've been watching this video and you've been watching all the recent videos, thank you for sticking around and still being there. I appreciate your loyalty. Thank you so much. Those of you who are watching but who are not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a second. It really helps the channel out, helps us grow, helps get us out there to other people who have the same interest that we are, namely comic books. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great Sunday, and have
like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.